Hi, it's Andrew Grant. I'm the CEO of CO2 Group. I've had the most fascinating last 4 weeks. I have spent pretty much every day travelling around the countryside, meeting with large companies who are starting to get their minds around the introduction of the carbon tax come 1 July. And it's been most valuable just listening to what their thinking is, how far advanced they are in their strategy, and just some of the feedback as to what's important to them and the kind of work that's underway. So I thought that'd be a useful thing to share with you. And in parallel, the government, CSIRO and the Bureau of Meteorology have just released their latest summary of climate change patterns. And it's an extraordinary setting really, because we've had record rainfall. It's fair to say some of the public think that spells the end of climate change, but in fact it's just more data reinforcing the severity and the unpredictability of climate change. So some of the feedback from emitters has been most fascinating, and the first observation I'd make is that they're still struggling really hard to get their minds around strategy on this topic. And understandably, but not surprisingly, it's a difficult issue for them, because for many of them, it's the first time in their career they've had to deal with this kind of risk. So it's outside their experience set, and they're being bombarded with lots of advice, but not quite sure which part of it is useful and which parts are relevant to their business. So strategy is still very much work in progress. Second observation I'd make is that the collapse of international trading permits is really having a significant impact on their thinking, more so than I'd realised, and I'm still a little bit surprised by that, because when you go backwards and have a look at the price of international permits 1 year ago and 2 years ago, they're as cheap as 80% lower than what they were in their early days. But I'm surprised by the inordinate focus on the short-term nature of that pricing. So that creates uncertainty as to what kind of investments you make. Third observation is how the trading scheme will work and the government auction process, and the relationship between the government auction process, sourcing of carbon farming initiative credits, and importing of clean development mechanism projects, the relative strengths and merits of those three options and how much effort should go into that. Last but not least, organisations are quite uncomfortable with the notion of having to trade carbon in their own right. If you're a large international company with experience in Europe, it's an easier question because they've been trading it and they've got dedicated teams. But if you're an Australian company, you might have a $50 million a year liability. Do you set up your own trading team? Do you partner with an organisation like ours? Do you source credits from the banks? What represents the best position is something they're yet to form a landing on. And the one closest to our heart is the carbon farming initiative. And my observation there is that companies are thinking that there'll be a bunch of projects, they'll generate credits, and they'll just be able to go into the market and buy them. And I've been surprised by, frankly, the lack of understanding of how projects work, their need for capital, the scarcity of capital in the market, and also some of the project risks and how proven or otherwise the technologies are and the quality of the counterparties. So I think it's button up the seatbelt. It's going to be a really aggressive ride over the next few months as the scheme comes into play. Big movement in terms of a large number of companies having to operate in a short period of time. Great uncertainty around action now, wanting greater certainty around price, but of course when you've got greater certainty around price, everyone's going to move at once. So who moves first and in what shape or fashion, I think will be something that we're going to see a lot of action on, and pretty quickly. Thank you.